Alright, so I wanted to give a quick video on how people are able to turn other people against you so easily at work. This is just one of the ways that they do it. Obviously, they use a lot of different techniques, but this is one of the main ways that they do it. So enjoy and comment, like, and subscribe. So first of all, a narcissist, what they do is they wait for an emotional moment at work, and usually it's going to be during a deadline, right before a deadline or something like that, where everybody's emotions are high, people are behind a little bit, everybody's completely focused on their work. And that's a problem, because if you're completely focused on your work and you're working with a narcissist, well, you're distracted, and so everybody's distracted. The narcissist doesn't really care about their work. They just care about becoming a better narcissist. So now what do? They start creating confusion. Everybody's distracted. All the emotions are high. People are going to be more reactive. So they're like, okay, now's my time to strike. So they create a bunch of confusion. And it's basically like they do things backwards. They do things in the wrong order. They hide something, or they give the wrong information, or just any little thing that, if you really think about it, you can trace it back to them. But usually it'll take a lot of thought to really figure out who caused the problem, and you won't have time to really trace it back to anybody because you're on a deadline. And before I go further, it's not, like I said, it's not always a deadline situation. That's just like one of the most common ways that it happens. But it's any emotional high. There could be a plethora of reasons why people are basically high strung, right? So what happens is, once this confusion is created and people are like, something's going wrong with the work, people are looking for somebody to blame, but you really don't have time to get to the bottom of it. And the narcissist at this point, they start aiming contemptuous looks at their victim, and they make sure everybody sees them. They're rolling their eyes. They're just giving the contemptuous smirk, and that's basically to put the blame on the person without putting the blame on the person, and to see how other people are responding to them. They don't want to just jump out the window and just, they want to see who's going to be a bully as well, who's neutral, and all of that, right? So it starts with looks, and eventually, at some point, somebody's going to say something to you. Somebody's going to blame you. Somebody's going to say something in an indirect way where you can hear it, and that's, it's basically putting the blame on you verbally, and it doesn't have to be in a negative, or it's always negative, but in a hostile way. They can say it in the most polite way. Like, let's say in this example, people think that you just aren't working fast enough, so they just say, the narc just says, you mind picking it up a little bit. They can say it real nice and kind. They don't have to yell at you, but the point is that now the blame is on you, and once that happens, you got to remember, everybody's high strung. You're emotional. It's easy for you to start arguing with the narcissist in that moment, and they can be like, why are you arguing with me? I was being polite, I was just saying, I'm trying to get the, help us all out, or, any old thing, but really they're trying to start something. So if you were a beginner at this, you might take the bait right there, like, oh, I'm going to start yelling and arguing with this narcissist, right? But usually, most people, like, after we've dealt with toxic environments before, better than to take that bait. So what bait do you normally take? It's like, okay, you understand, you might not know exactly how the narcissist caused the problem, but it's like on a subconscious level that that this person's after you. So you're probably going to be smart enough not to directly argue with them right on the spot. But what happens is that everybody else, now that you're the blame, everybody's stressed out, everybody's, a little bit angry, they start getting short with you. Even the non-narcissist, dancing monkey, I'm talking about just the neutral people, can even become uh, basically start getting short with you, you know, that's the person that you get into an argument with, because you thought that they were neutral, and it catches you off guard because they're being short, or they try to act like they're helping but they aren't, you know, and they go with the narrative that you're the problem, and that's like offensive, and then now you and them are arguing, and that's where things start to turn. That's when everybody starts to turn against you, because at this point you're arguing with somebody else, and the narcissist is going to jump in and they're going to just blow everything out of proportion. Like, you and this neutral person who's confused, you guys are going to be arguing. It's probably going to be on a scale of 1 to 10. You guys are going to be probably like at a level 2 or 3, you know. But the narcissist is going to jump in. He's going to bring the energy up to like a level 8. Now you guys, I'm talking about shouting, and then now that you kind of got into it a little bit, now you start arguing with the narcissist at this point, because it's hard not to, because now this person's yelling at you, and then now you become the problem, you know. And in that moment, it's hard to understand like how this all came to be. Like, you just had a feeling that something was wrong, and you're like, okay, so how come everybody's yelling at me? But if you really start to think about it, usually the narcissist caused all of the problems. They caused all this confusion. They did it all on purpose. And now, when they create confusion, it's not to say that, okay, they were thinking that this is how this is going to end. It's kind of like they create confusion. They stir the pot up enough so that there's just a lot of content that can come out of it. They don't know how it's going to end, but they don't know exactly how everybody's going to react. They have their hopes, but they just basically, they're giving themselves a chance to have something to them which would be good, which is actually bad, but something that they can use come out of it, you know. So they're just stirring the pot, and that's how it happens.